What if the version of you that everyone loves isn't even you? Picture a crisp autumn evening, the kind where the air smells of damp leaves and wood smoke. Clara, 32, stood outside a party she didn't want to be at, her breath fogging under a flickering street lamp. The music pulsed through the walls, laughter spilling out, but inside her, a quiet storm was brewing. For years, she'd been the one who smiled on cue, answered every call, explained herself to anyone who raised an eyebrow. She was accessible, an open book, pages torn out for anyone who asked. But that night, as she traced the cold metal of her keys in her pocket, something shifted, not with a shout or a tear, but with the soft snap of a thread, stretched too thin. Clara realized she'd been giving herself away, piece by piece, for nothing. Not peace, not power, just the fleeting approval of others. This isn't just Clara's story. It's the ache of anyone who's felt too reachable. We're taught to be open, to respond, to bend. Smile when you're crumbling. Justify your choices when no one's listening. Clara knew this dance well. She thinks of her co-worker Jonah, 35, who'd toss out jabs like confetti. "Why didn't you push harder in that presentation?" And she'd scramble to explain, her words spilling like water from a tipped glass. Jonah didn't care about her reasons, he just knew she'd react. The world, Clara learned, is full of people who press buttons because they're there, glowing, begging to be touched. But those buttons only work if you leave them exposed. Becoming unreachable isn't about disappearing. It's about owning your space. It's not hiding. It's choosing who gets to see your soul. Clara started small. The next time Jonah smirked and questioned her work, she met his gaze, let the silence stretch, and turned away. The air felt thick, her heart raced, but that silence was hers. She didn't explain, didn't apologize, and something changed. Jonah, used to her quick defenses, faltered, his smirk fading. Her silence wasn't cold, it was a shield, a quiet declaration that her energy wasn't his to claim. That's the secret few grasp. Every reaction you give is a piece of your power handed over. Every outburst, every rushed justification, every plea for understanding is a crack in your armor. But when you hold back, when you choose silence, you become a mystery. And humans, drawn to what slips through their fingers, start to lean in. Think of Theo, 28, the barista at Clara's favorite coffee shop, where the air always smelled of roasted beans and warm pastry. Theo moved through the morning rush with a calm that felt like a melody, unruffled by snapping customers or spilled orders. One day, a man barked at him for a wrong drink, his voice sharp enough to slice the hum of the cafe. Theo didn't flinch. He nodded, remade the drink, and said nothing. The man braced for a fight, deflated, muttering to himself. Clara watched, her coffee cooling in her hands, as the room seemed to tilt toward Theo. Not because he demanded it, but because he didn't. His silence was a strategy, his calm a kind of magic. Clara saw it then. Being unreachable isn't about being distant. It's about being sovereign, a presence that commands without a word. Letting go feels like losing at first, doesn't it? Like dropping something you've clutched so tightly, your hands ache. For Clara, it was like peeling off a jacket that never fit. She thinks of her old friend, Lila, 30, who'd call at midnight, her voice a torrent of drama, boyfriends, betrayals, endless storms. Clara would listen, her own life fading into the background, the clock ticking past her bedtime. She thought holding on was loyalty, that being there was love. But one night, as Lila ranted about the same toxic cycle, Clara felt a quiet rebellion stir. She didn't argue or cut her off. She just started answering less, letting texts sit unanswered, not out of spite, but out of respect for herself. The silence felt heavy, but it was freedom. Letting go isn't defeat, it's a release. It's cutting the ropes that tie you to someone else's chaos. Clara started noticing other weights, the job that left her drained, its fluorescent lights buzzing like a headache, the family dinners where she played the perfect daughter, smiling through her mother's critiques. Each was a thread pulling her away from herself. Letting them go felt like betrayal at first. Her mother's voice rang in her ears. "Don't be so selfish, Clara." But selfishness, she realized, was just another word for survival. She quit the job, trading a steady paycheck for the unknown. She skipped a family dinner, choosing instead a quiet night with a book, the rain tapping her window like a friend. Each choice was a stone in the foundation of her boundaries, not to shut others out, but to hold herself together. Consider Ezra, 40, a therapist Clara met at a mindfulness retreat where the air smelled of sage and possibility. Ezra shared a story from his early days when he'd say yes to every client, taking calls at midnight, absorbing their crises like a sponge. He thought it made him vital. Instead, it hollowed him out, his energy leaking like sand. One day, a client screamed at him for not fixing her fast enough. Ezra, exhausted, didn't argue. He referred her elsewhere and set a boundary. No calls after 7 p.m. His practice didn't crumble, it flourished. Clients respected him because he respected himself. Ezra's lesson hit Clara hard. Boundaries aren't shouted, they're lived. They're the quiet choices that say, "My peace is mine." Letting go also means releasing the need to explain. Clara used to justify everything. Why she moved to a smaller apartment with creaky floors, why she stayed single, why she needed space. But explanations invited arguments, and arguments stole her calm. So she stopped. When her cousin Ivy, 27, asked why she'd skipped a family reunion, Clara just smiled and said, "I needed some time." Ivy pushed, but Clara's silence was a wall, not cruel, but firm. Over time, Ivy stopped asking. Clara's peace became a language others learned to understand, like a song they couldn't quite hum, but felt in their bones. Silence isn't empty, it's alive. Imagine a forest at dawn, mist curling through the trees, every sound softened by the weight of stillness. That's what silence can do in a world that never stops shouting. For Clara, silence became her weapon. She used to fill every pause with words, terrified of being misjudged. But silence, she learned, speaks louder than arguments. It's not about ignoring people, it's about choosing when your voice matters. Take Nora, 33, a colleague Clara admired. Nora had a way of owning meetings without raising her voice, her presence like a steady flame. Once, a manager dismissed her idea with a smirk, the room tensing. Everyone expected Nora to push back. Instead, she leaned back, her eyes calm, and said nothing. The silence stretched, heavy, until the manager fumbled, backtracking. Nora's restraint wasn't weakness, it was power. Clara saw it again at a cafe, when a stranger spilled coffee on Nora's scarf. The man braced for a reaction, but Nora wiped it off, smiled faintly, and walked away. Her calm disarmed him, leaving him apologizing to the air. Clara, sipping her latte, felt the weight of that moment. Silence wasn't just quiet, it was control. Silence is strategy, not surrender. Clara practiced this with Jonah, who'd bait her with sly comments about her work. One day, he teased her about a missed deadline in front of the team, his voice dripping with amusement. Old Clara would have stammered an excuse, cheeks burning. New Clara met his gaze, said nothing, and turned back to her laptop. The room felt her presence, not her absence. Jonah's smirk faded, his confidence cracking. Silence, Clara realized, wasn't about hiding. It was about staying whole, a choice that said, "You don't get to unravel me. This isn't easy." Silence feels like a gamble, when your ego screams to be heard. Clara still remembers a fight with her brother Milo, 29, over a forgotten promise to help him move. He accused her of pulling away, his voice sharp with hurt. Her instinct was to explain, to soothe his pain. Instead, she took a breath and said, "I hear you. Can we talk tomorrow?" Milo was stunned, but the pause gave them space to breathe. When they spoke again, it was softer, truer. Silence didn't push Milo away. It built a bridge, because it came from clarity, not fear. People think being unreachable means being cold, like a stone untouched by warmth. But Clara learned it's the opposite. It's emotional maturity. Coldness is shutting down. Being unreachable is staying open to what deserves you. It's not feeling less, it's feeling right. Clara used to think reacting to every slight proved she cared. But caring doesn't mean bleeding for everyone. It means choosing who gets your heart. Enter Amara, 36, a yoga teacher Clara met at a retreat where the scent of eucalyptus hung in the air. Amara's laugh was like sunlight, warm and inviting, but her boundaries were like steel. Once, a student demanded Amara change her schedule for private lessons. Amara smiled and said, "My evenings are for my family, offering another time." The student pushed, but Amara's calm held, no trace of guilt. Clara asked how she stayed so kind yet unyielding. Amara said, "I love people, but I love myself first. That's not cold, it's truth." Her words landed like a stone in still water, rippling through Clara's thoughts. Amara's clarity reshaped Clara's world. Being unreachable didn't mean closing her heart. It meant guarding it. She started saying no without apology. No to Lila's late-night rants. No to extra work that drained her. No to relationships that felt like cages. Each no was a yes to herself. She didn't stop caring. She stopped carrying what wasn't hers. When Ivy called her selfish, Clara didn't argue. She let the words fall, like rain she didn't need to catch. Her peace was her own, and no one could shake it. This shift changed how people saw her. Jonah stopped baiting her, sensing her strength. Milo started respecting her space, their bond growing deeper. Even strangers noticed. Theo, the barista, commented on her quiet fire one morning, his eyes crinkling with respect. Being unreachable wasn't isolation. It was a presence so strong it didn't need to shout. Clara felt it in her bones, a steadiness that made the world feel softer, safer, hers. The ultimate power, Clara discovered, is not needing to be understood. It's standing in a storm of opinions. Your roots deep, your heart steady. We're taught to crave validation, to explain until everyone nods. But Clara learned that chasing approval is like chasing fog. It slips away, leaving you cold. She thinks of Ezra, the therapist, who once told her about a client who demanded he prove his methods. Ezra didn't argue or list credentials. He said, "My work speaks for itself. If it doesn't fit you, that's okay." The client stayed, drawn to his quiet certainty. Ezra told Clara, "When you stop needing to be seen, you become visible in a way that matters." That truth became her anchor. Clara stopped trying to make Ivy understand her choices, stopped convincing Lila she wasn't distant. She lived her truth and let others catch up, or not. Her apartment, once a place to hide, became a haven. Soft pillows, the glow of cedar candles, the hum of jazz in the air. She cooked for herself, the sizzle of onions in a pan filling her with joy, not because anyone expected it, but because it was hers. She walked through the city, the cobblestones firm under her boots, not rushing to answer texts or prove her worth. Her presence grew solid, like a flame that didn't flicker. Her relationships shifted too. She drew people like Nora and Amara, who valued her without demanding pieces of her. Old ties, like Lila's, faded, not with drama, but with a quiet drift, like leaves on a stream. Clara didn't mourn them. She'd learned that losing what doesn't fit isn't loss. It's space for what does. Her energy, once scattered, became a magnet, pulling in those who saw her without needing a map. She was no longer a puzzle to be solved, but a presence to be felt. Now picture Clara years later on a park bench, the autumn leaves crunching under her boots. She's 37 now, her face softer, but her eyes sharper, carrying the quiet strength of someone who's earned her peace. The world still hums around her. Phones buzz, voices clash, demands pile up, but she's untouched, not because she's above it, but because she chooses what reaches her. This is the legacy of being unreachable, not a life without feeling, but a life where every feeling is yours to claim. Clara thinks of her niece, Sadie, 17, who's just starting to navigate the world's clamor. One evening, over steaming mugs of cocoa in Clara's kitchen, Sadie poured out her heart, friends demanding her loyalty, teachers pushing for perfection, social media begging for her image. Clara listened, the steam curling like a promise, and shared a story. Years ago, she was like Sadie, bending to every expectation. Then she met Amara, who showed her that saying no wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Amara once turned down a lucrative client who disrespected her time, choosing instead to teach free classes for kids in her community. That choice, Amara said, wasn't just about boundaries. It was about legacy, about showing the world what she valued. Inspired, Clara started guiding Sadie, not with advice, but with presence. She took her to Theo's coffee shop, where he now ran the place at 33, his hands steady as he poured lattes. Theo told Sadie how his silence during tough moments, angry customers, personal grief, became his signature. "People remember how you hold yourself," he said, his voice low but firm. Clara saw Sadie's eyes light up, soaking in the idea that power doesn't need noise. She was learning what Clara had, that being unreachable is a gift to the world, a way of showing others they can guard their peace and still shine. This legacy isn't just for Sadie, it's for everyone who sees Clara. Her co-workers notice how she handles stress without breaking. Her calm, a quiet rebellion against chaos. Her friends, like Nora, admire US legal, admire how she loves deeply, but never loses herself. Even strangers feel it, like the woman who bumped into her at the market, apologizing frantically. Clara didn't snap or brush it off. She smiled, said, "It's okay," and moved on, her energy steady. That's the mark, of someone unreachable, not untouchable, but unshakable, a presence that lingers like the scent of rain. Building this legacy isn't instant. Clara still stumbles. Last week, Jonah's snide remark about her new vibe stung, and she nearly bit back. But she breathed, let the moment pass, and felt stronger for it. Each choice to stay steady is a step toward her monument, a life that says, I am enough, and I decide who sees me. She's teaching Sadie and herself that being unreachable is a legacy of silence that roars, of strength that doesn't need to shout. So ask yourself, what legacy will your presence leave? Will you be the one who reacts to every push, or the one who stands firm? A mystery that commands respect. Write this in the comments. My silence is not absence, it's my strength. Let's see how many are ready to claim that power. And if this story stirred something in you, if it woke the part of you tired of bending, subscribe. Here, we talk about what's felt deeply, what's rarely said, what changes everything. I'll leave you not with a goodbye, but with a pause, a silence that weighs, a space for you to fill. This isn't the end. It's the start of a you no one can reach unless you choose.